What's up, guys? Welcome back to another YUPCAST Summer Edition episode. Here with the boys. Once again, we got... Actually, not once again, bro. This is our first run for Jeremy. Pan.
Pan to Jeremy,
Pan to
please.
Jeremy. Pan to Jeremy.
It's okay. We got a new cameraman.
And then we got Bryan
Lil B from the P.
and JC back with the heat.
Sheesh.
All right, so we got a very interesting topic for today. We're going to be talking about weapons in the church, and it's a very controversial topic. I guess we could agree, because there's this like theology, or not theology, but like ideology that
A sentiment.
that Christians shouldn't have arms. There's this like ideology that goes, and it's very double-sided because we have the Western culture that hardly believes that, like, or not hardly, but truly believes that we should have weapons. But then we have kind of like the, I would say even Hispanic culture that, they're not really into like guns. Once they've like converted to Christ, they feel like they shouldn't have arms. And I've kind of grown up with that, growing up in a Hispanic culture, Hispanic church. My parents taught me, guns aren't good, we shouldn't buy them. But as I got older, I became like more into like guns and stuff like that, and I started purchasing them for myself. So I don't know. What do you guys think? On this topic, do you guys believe we should, as Christians, own arms, or we shouldn't?
Whoa. I think it's a pretty dense topic, and I think, more than my personal beliefs, I think it's what does the evidence say of owning or not owning guns? And I think that's something that we're going to be discussing about, and I think that's more important than our personal opinions.
But I think even then we can't forget about sentiments and culture, right? I think maybe a lot of the older generation, maybe our parents are, for example, first-time Christians. Like, what if they came from a background with gang violence, or something? They lived on the streets, right? Their friends were thugging it out, right? They have a connotation in their mind about what owning a weapon means, right? We have to acknowledge this as well, so that we can understand why is this sentiment here? Like, why is there such a notion of Christianity being, without weapons? Why is our pacifism equated to being without a firearm?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I think that's one of those aspects that we need to consider. I think, maybe a lot of people grew up equating guns with violence, right? And we hear about it all the time on television. Whenever something violent is done with a gun, it's on the news, right? So, of course, for reaction, knee-jerk scenario, right? Like, what do people want to do? Like, I don't want my kids to have guns. I don't want them to become violent people, right?
True, but then there's also that, the bad guys have guns, and if we don't have guns, we're going to be like, outweighed when it comes to a fight, when it comes down to like, am I protecting my family, how do I do that, without having guns, even though the other party that, might come against my life or my family will have that, option, do I just like let it overtake, that overpower me, and like just let it consume me? And, those around me, or do I fight back, fire with fire? So
right, but how often have we been in that situation?
Well, I wouldn't say myself in that situation, but just because I don't see myself in the situation doesn't mean I shouldn't be prepared for it.
I think we should focus on the issue at hand, and I think the reason why there's so much controversy is because of the shootings, the mass shootings that there has been. And I actually want to give like a quick fact about mass shootings. So, since the Columbine shooting, which was in 1999, there has been 14 school shootings since 1999. But in comparison, there has been 23 church shootings since 1999.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to think that, I'm not saying to downplay schools,
No.
but I don't think that church shootings have been talked about enough. Because honestly, I thought that school shootings were a bigger problem than church shootings. And it's crazy. And did you know that? So something interesting is that most of the shootings and the deadliest ones have been in Texas, which is a gun good state. But even though you could say, okay, well, this is because they have like very like low gun laws, like very like like I guess like freedom for
Yeah.
guns. It's also that they have like one of the places that with the most churches, with the biggest churches as well.
Yeah.
So I think you need to look at all the confounding variables as well in order to come up with a conclusion.
True, and I mean, I would say it has the most shootings, right? But when it comes to like just gun violence in general, I want to say it's like one of the lowest states. I don't have like the actual statistics, but I want to say like California is one of the highest gun violent states. I would say where other cities like Chicago, just alone, is also known
Detroit.
to be Detroit. All these places, aside from just Texas alone, have higher gun violence in general. And we can put in a spectrum like gun violence as just mass shootings, or we can look at it as a whole. Like just to like get where we're talking about this topic, like what has led us to this point, and like the recreation of weapons from like the beginning of time. They started off with swords, and what drove these people over generations to like create what we have like today, like weapons of mass destruction. Aside from it, like it's been nothing but evil. You want to have the upper hand on your enemies, right? So that's what promotes these people. Kind of like the Cold War. If you put the Cold War into perspective, it was the U.S. going against the Soviet Union because they wanted to have the best weapons, even though
they're kind of just flexing on each other.
They didn't even use them. Yeah, they just wanted to like be like you should be intimidated by the fact that I have the ability to like go like hand to hand at war with you, and I was talking to JC about this story earlier that I actually overlooked a lot in the Bible, and I was curious, like who was like the first battle like ever mentioned, and in the Bible, and actually, so the king or the first one of the first rulers of Persia or the Persian kingdom, which is now known as Iran, actually decided to go against Lot, and he actually took a couple kings with him, and they all joined forces and they go against Lot in the Bible. And they actually capture him, and he's pretty much just outweighed, and he's now being captured by all these people. But who's gonna rescue him? And nobody less than Abraham. And the best part is like Abraham didn't have like the most elite, or most numbered army, but it was like around 300 and something.
300.
Man, it was a couple more, right? But it says that he actually gathers all his men, and he comes with like a strategy to get these guys at a camp at night. And that's exactly what they do. They go to this camp at night, even though they know they're outnumbered. They still go, because they're getting Lot back. And they do. They actually prevail. They get Lot back, and the other teams, like all the soldiers flee. And yeah, I mean that's kind of like where like I would say like the beginning of like wars in the Bible starts. They didn't like shun down and like not just do nothing. They were God's people. They were known to like be good fighters.
So I think there's like a lot of like and I think these guys could back me up. I think there's a lot of like examples in the Bible that shows like a good use of weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe Jeremy has a couple of examples. I don't know.
Yeah, I think something really interesting when I was reading the Bible. In the book of Psalms, David's like, God, you trained my hands for war, and I'm like, okay, God trained them to
fight. Yeah.
God trained them to be able to hurt people. And it wasn't, it wasn't in an evil way. He was, of course, protecting his country. He was doing it out of love for his people, right? But, I think it's something we have to take account of. Like, yeah, like, there's violence in this world. God acknowledges that. We acknowledge that, Like, what is our role in all this?
And to add more examples, I feel like, for example, Nehemiah is like in task with rebuilding the city. He has to rebuild the walls, and as they're rebuilding, there's a lot of enemies surrounding them, and they literally have to be rebuilding with one hand, and with the other hand they need to have a sword on them. Mm-hmm. So it just shows that like it's just that necessity. And there's other examples. Samson, he didn't have the best weapons, but he ended up killing like 1,000 men with like, what was it, like
It was the jaw, or
it was a jaw of a donkey, or was it the
something like crazy? Yeah, it was like a bone.
Yeah, it was a bone, I think,
of an animal, and he like
and he went
murdered
crazy,
like
bro.
1,000, right? Was it 1,000?
Yeah, it was 1,000. He said, I killed 1,000 men with this. I think it was like the jawhide or something.
Bro,
like
those
it's
times were
thing
like
of a donkey, no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he might be right. It was the
Or the bull.
donkey.
It was a donkey. Yeah, it was a donkey.
It was the jaw of a bull, right? I mean, a donkey.
So yeah, I mean, but okay, now these are good examples of like of what like God's people, like using weapons. But there has also been examples of like God's people misusing weapons, and not just in the Bible, like just in a historical perspective. I want to say like I wouldn't say like okay, the Catholic Church, it's not the right church, like it's not. They have like a lot of bad beliefs, but it paved the way to Christianity as we know it today, right?
Yeah.
And you could tell, like, for example, they had the Crusades,
Yeah.
They went out on an all-out war into Jerusalem. Oh, let's get back to Promised Land, killing, like, millions of people in their path. Like, I bet you children, women, whatever was there, in the name of God. So, like, what do you guys think? Like, there could be misuse and there could be good use.
Even then, well, I think it's like it's a misuse, but I think it's really interesting that they still didn't get that land back.
They actually captured it for like a couple years, and then they got like.
But to like actually have it to this day, like it just shows to like an extent like how God's people are covered, and it's like yeah, you might have had like some small victories, but overall like don't get comfortable. Like my people are coming back to stay.
It was not God's timing for them to like recapture it.
Yeah, exactly. So. I feel like they misused that, and a lot of people were slaughtered. I think that's a great example. Another like I want to like sidetrack, but like since we were talking about like David, another thing like he like helped his people was like being brave enough to fight a giant. But David didn't use like a sword, right? It was like the most like I would say like amazing fight because he just used the how do you say it in English the lanza?
A sling.
Yeah, it's a sling. It's like a slingshot.
And he picked up 5 rocks and he only used one. And I was like, yo, like he didn't like maybe he didn't need that at the time, but David still became a man of war to use the sword, and he even cut David or Goliath's head with his own sword.
That's pretty savage.
Which I don't know if you guys catch this, but like later on when Saul is chasing David to kill him. He actually repossesses the sword from it was Eliam, and he gives him the sword back to like protect himself from King Saul, which I thought was like, yo, like hey, the sword's back to like the rightful owner.
Yeah, and the little detail about that story is like, where did he go to pick up that sword? He went to the temple.
He went to a temple.
Yeah, like that's where he got refuge.
Wait, but what's crazy? If you keep going a little further, you see that King Saul actually slaughters that temple, like. They kill everyone in there, priests included. He did not care about God, and technically Saul was God's chosen one. So you see both a great use of weapons and then a misuse of weapons again.
Later on by being punished with his own son's death.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he did get punished after that,
I feel like also a recent example that we've seen like of misuse of weapons and like both in a good scenario. I don't know if you guys have heard like about the recent shooting in that mall. There was a man that went into the.
Which mall was this again?
I don't remember, but I remember seeing. I'm not so sure. I was talking about it yesterday, with JC and one of the pastors at Harvest. Shout out Harvest.
Yeah.
But we were talking about how an individual went into a bathroom with an AR, and I guess he was there for an hour, and as soon as he came out, he shot down 3 people in 15 seconds. But at the same time, another man that was just walking shopping with his girlfriend, he was actually carrying a weapon on him as well, and he just as soon as he's heard this is all happened in 15 seconds. The man started shooting the guy that came out of the bathroom started shooting these 3 people, killed them, but the other man in the same amount of time he shot the man from 40 feet away. And I'm
with a 9mm.
With a 9mm.
It was like the other video you showed me too.
Yeah.
Earlier.
Oh, yeah. So there was actually a video about a church shooting actually.
So like 2018, I believe.
And yeah, I mean, I have the video, but I probably won't play it for you guys. But I mean, it's a crazy story. Like literally, this guy has a shotgun, and he's like sitting like kind of at the corner of the church. He's kind of all wearing all black, and then he goes up to the usher multiple times, and then he all of a sudden pulls out his shotgun, and then for a second he like. I feel like he didn't like he wanted to kill them, but at the same time he kind of wanted like scare them a little bit. But there's a guy behind him that pulls out his gun, and then at that moment he just like shoots the guy that's pulling out his gun, and then he shoots the usher. But luckily there's a guy probably like probably like 10 meters or 20 meters away, and he like he pulls out his gun in that like 3 second timeline and then shoots him, preventing him from killing like so many other people. So if only 2 people of that congregation died because of that man that basically like was brave enough to like, I'm gonna take it out and I'm gonna protect my church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like the topic like I want to converse. Like, what if we find ourselves in this situation, right? And if you're armed, like, do you use your weapon, or do you try to like de-escalate the situation, which is probably not not gonna go your way.
It's not possible if he's already shooting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like at this point, like if churches were to like converse about this topic, like would you take your chances on having an armed church or a disarmed church?
I think it all comes down to like, training, bro. Because if you have a bunch of people that are not trained and they don't know how to use that weapon, and they're just like gonna be like crazy and start like shooting everywhere, I think they're more of a danger than the shooter itself.
Yeah.
Because then that's just friendly fire all around, and I mean, that's probably like the worst scenario. But I feel like if you have like a couple of trained individuals in your church that they like basically told the pastor and leadership, hey, I'm gonna be carrying a gun, and mental checks are run on them, making sure that they're like mentally capable and have. I mean, honestly, it would be nice if they were like law enforcement or something like that,
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think there should certainly. I think I agree with you. I think there should be certainly like, kind of a standard to be able to carry, especially like in a place like a church or even like a school, because I don't think like, obviously I don't think anybody should like just anybody be like, oh, here's a gun, protect yourself. Like I feel like there should be like a proper like sort of like a test or something. I don't know. There's
I
not
mean,
really-
there is like
there's-
background checks, but
Yeah.
how good are they?
It should be like, I do believe that this should be like the ability like, the freedom to
Capacitated.
do.
They should
Yeah.
be capacitated to be able to protect people, not just handed a tool, a deadly tool.
Like it's like anything really. A gun is a tool. That's what it is. And I know I was talking to Jose. Shout out Jose. Jose was actually saying that we were talking about that yesterday. Actually, he was saying that a weapon is a tool. Is what it is. Like you can use anything as a weapon really, if it's put in the wrong hands, right? So let's say like a construction worker walks around with a hammer. They're using it to hammer nails, but obviously anyone else can grab a hammer and hit someone with a head in the head with it, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the same thing with a gun, right? A gun is, or like any type of weapon, really, can be used to defend yourself rather than go attack people, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something.
Yeah, I think if I were to have this conversation with one of my dear friends, Oscar Haro, I know you're gonna watch this video because we're gonna make this a reel. And he was sharing with me that a church actually reached out to him. He's not like very like into like like religion or Christianity, but this Christian church reached out to him, and they were gonna have like this men's conference, and they invited him just for the sole fact that he's a trained and gun owner. He has a CCW. He has everything he needs to like protect himself, his family, and anybody around him. And he said they invited him to a camp. He's like, just the fact that he was a carrier. And then he said, well, I got there and it turns out he wasn't the only one, right? So I kind of like a hook, right? Hey, let's get this man to Jesus, but let's make him feel like he's the one protecting us. When in fact, Jesus is protecting us.
Well, I wouldn't say, okay, you just said Jesus protecting
Because
you.
I'm going to that.
Okay. Well, look, I feel like in a perfect world, we wouldn't be having to carry weapons around and
Yeah.
having to protect ourselves. But the fact is that we don't live in a perfect world. And,
Exactly.
And Bryan mentioned something that people should be qualified, but I think qualifications can be deceiving. I feel like, and to share with you guys a story, there was a shooting that the deadliest church shooting ever was carried out by a veteran actually, and he worked with the Air Force. And even though this man had like a lot of like criminal past, he was still able to get a firearm. He was still able to like do this like crazy stuff, even though he had like felony charges for child abuse and he basically beat up his stepson and like basically fractured his skull, and yet he was still able to get a gun and kill 26 people. But what's crazy is that if it wasn't for like another man that saw him like start shooting, he would have even killed even more people. So it's like like where's the balance? You know, we don't live in a perfect society, and like no one is like, I would say like that perfect person that you would want to be having them carry a gun. You know?
Yeah.
I agree as well, because I know that, like, even us, I know there's been a point in our lives where we're not all mentally stable, right? There's like times when maybe someone's depressed, maybe they're not, obviously when you get things like anxiety or things like that, you're not thinking straight. That can happen to anybody. It's not just mental illness or like just any, I don't know, just criminal past or anything like that. I do believe that it's like it can happen to anybody. Um, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think you know how you're feeling all the time. Like
Yeah.
I think it's up to your own convictions. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, like I don't feel well today. I don't want to be around weapons. Don't be around weapons.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think most of the people are okay most of the time. I think no. I think the right person is not, tripping about having a gun all the time on them. There's people that live with a gun on their hip, like almost 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Why'd you
what?
look at me?
You know
Why'd
what?
you look at
You know what?
No.
I feel like Brian brought an interesting point, and if he, Brian brought an interesting point because he said not all the time we feel like like our mental state is not the best, but also if you look at like shooters, school shooters or church shooters, whatever, like all of them like have a pattern of behavior that comes from years and years of years. So it's not like they woke up one day and they were like, "Oh, I'm not feeling it. I'm gonna go shoot up someone."
Mm-hmm.
No, it was like years of behavior that they demonstrated that they were like something was off about them.
Yeah.
And you could see like after someone does like a huge shooting, they like there's so many people come out like, hey, like this guy, he was always weird, he did this, he told me before that about like shootings that he might commit one or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me be like, bro, if someone went up to you and told you, bro, I'd probably shoot someone up, aren't you not gonna like report it? Like it's probably like your duty as a civilian to report him. Like you're not snitching, bro.
Or even just to get them help, like before it goes on, right? Because there's multiple situations, right? Because I feel like that it also starts like with the people around them.
Yeah, there's always a
Like,
reason.
like people around them, obviously, like if they go through years of bullying or just even trauma that just happens in
Resentment.
their household, the people around them are the most responsible, I think, to because it doesn't just go on to one person. I like you're saying, and it just doesn't happen overnight. I feel like even for us, like like we're all responsible for each other, right? Like
Yeah.
to influence each other. And if you see like obviously, someone that maybe is like threatening or like saying, "Oh, I want to do this to this person," or "I want to hurt somebody," that's kind of like a sign to be like, "Okay, we need to have a talk with you. We need to get you some help," right? Like,
Yeah.
it's a sign.
So I mean, what I'm hearing is that maybe you should like if you see someone like kind of down or like
Mhm.
something's going on with them, talk to them. And I feel like as Americans, like we kind of don't feel that duty
Mm-hmm.
to like care about our neighbor or like ask him like what's going on or stuff like that. And I think this speaks about a greater like problem in America, which is mental health, which we're actually gonna have a full episode on about,
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I feel like I don't know, Marcos. I don't know if you want to have anything to touch on that.
Um,
I think mental health is probably one of the things that is leading to this conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because
Well, yeah, because mental health has a big part on the mass shooting side of it, and it leads people to like want to ban all guns, right? That's why we're like sitting here right now is because there's this
Mass shootings.
mass shootings create controversial topics of whether we should even be allowed to have guns. But it always leads me to the same, like rebuttal, which is like, criminals are gonna get hands on guns regardless, right? And people will tell me, well, that's a tired argument, but it's a fact, people in Chicago, most of the people in Chicago don't
Illegal.
have, yeah, they're all getting illegal guns. They're all having shootouts and they're retrieving these illegal guns, right? But actual citizens that, want to protect themselves go about the reasonable way of getting these things. And kind of like I kind of had like a solution for that, which would be having like mental assessments more
Mhm.
often. If you're gonna have a gun license, I believe you should have a mental assessment, whether it's yearly or quarterly. If it has to come to that point, just so we know that the people handling guns are actually mentally sane.
Um.
yeah, and I mean, I think mental health has been something like coming into the light more recently. Um, looking at a statistic, it looked like 1997 to 2017, gun deaths in the United States had gone up by 33%.
Yeah.
You know, and we're talking mental health. Like, is this the main factor why gun violence is going up? Like, I kind of, in my opinion, I see like, you know, we're going towards a society that doesn't have some underlying moral
Yeah.
um, foundation, to put it that way. We don't have, uh, we don't have. It's not common to say like, yeah, we believe in respect, but we don't believe in saying hi to our neighbor, right? We
Mhm.
don't believe in reaching out, you know, to someone like maybe they're not even in need, like just to someone just to see how they're doing, like emotionally, right? We don't believe in connection anymore because it's all on this, right?
Yeah.
And this is incredibly isolating, right? Phones are incredibly isolating. Technology, like, we believe it connects us, right? But really, like, if I don't want to see people, they're blocked.
Yeah.
Blocked, right? Like, social media, maybe, yeah, it connects a few to a crowd, you know, but it also, you know, it also makes outcasts of many. And I think just that lack of societal, like, warmth, you know, like, we don't care for one another. I think that's what's destroying people. And like, and just to add to that, the lack of foundation in people, like, it's leading to a sense of lack of purpose, right? Purposelessness, plus, you know, heartlessness in other people. Like, is this what is creating all these mass shootings? You know?
Yeah.
I think, you know, part of the problem is that we're looking at the wrong problem. We think that owning guns is like the reason for these mass shootings, and like Jeremy said, it's mental health. And I wanted to talk about, you know, during World War II, before World War II. So before even the Nazis had taken control of the German government, their government had required people to register who owned guns, and of course, the people that registered themselves were like law-abiding citizens, and they even included like their race, you know,
Yeah.
Jews, you know. And when the Nazis took over,
They had a list.
they literally knew where to go, who to find, and they actually went and did that. They
Confiscated.
confiscated, yeah, weapons, and they basically like left them defenseless. So like I see that a lot, that people are like scared of like if everyone was registered who owns a weapon, and like based on like, you know, their gender, their I mean nationality, like stuff like that, it only leads to like there a point where maybe, you know, maybe the government comes in and takes everything and then just leaves you vulnerable, you know.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe we should not focus so much on, you know, like weapons, because weapons are going to be around. I mean, if you look at in England, there's like guns are banned, but like people be stabbing each other like left and right, bro. And obviously a knife is not as deadly as a gun, you know, but I mean, murder is murder, man.
And I mean, like banning weapons as a whole, like let's say it was nationwide. We're looking at this as a perspective. We're all city boys, right? We all live in like crowded cities. But if we were to look at it at a perspective, like let's say you're living like in Montana, Utah, somewhere where people like, you know, live, you know, more secluded, and they actually hunt, you know, what would be like hares or deer to actually survive off these foods. Like, you know, you have to also consider that they have rights too. And, you know, if you were to be taking these, you know, as a whole, like completely banning weapons, you'd actually have to restrict them too.
You see, I see that a lot. I see that argument, and I've used that argument. Oh well, people need to hunt, and then people are like, well, they don't really need an AR-15 to go hunt a deer. They really don't, and it's just facts. Like people don't need an AR-15. The reason you have an AR-15 is mostly for protection. To be honest, like you can use an AR-15 to go hunting. Don't get me wrong, but to be honest, you'd probably rather get like a bolt action.
But at the same time, like you could have an AR-15, right? And it shoots a, you know, you can either get a 223 or a 5.56, right? Either one, either or. And if you were to get like let's say a Ruger 14, which shoots the same exact caliber, you know, people were to look at them side by side and be like, one looks more menacing than the other, but they do the same damage. You know, so I feel like you know we have like this misconception that the AR-15 or the AK-47 are like these super deadly weapons, but all weapons will do the same damage. You know, they all shoot to kill. You know, So I feel like if we put them all in the same spectrum, like, would you not ban like shotguns first because of the damage that the shotgun does? Or what would you think on that? Or would you ban like also knives, right? Since we have more killings in the U.S. or just nationwide with knives, you know, just because it looks menacing doesn't mean it does more damage than all these other guns that are on the market. It's just like the AR-15 has been like criminalized a certain way or portrayed a certain way that people think that it shoots faster or that it does more damage or you can kill more people at once, but the fact is you can get something else and do the same amount of damage.
Why is there such a misconception around certain weapons? You know, like
Well,
the
I
the
feel like
power.
I
Lack
feel
of
like
education.
that lack of education and something that the media loves doing is always putting something as like, you know, they need a selling point, right? So what gun can they put up as like the worst looking gun? Which one will sell us more newspaper, right? And it'd be the AR-15, right? Because you
It
know
looks like the M4.
it has all these nice cuts, right? You can put all these attachments on it, but the reality is it's just like any other gun. And you know, if you were to go to like the Middle East, they would not use an AR-15 because they know that it would jam, you know, more often than their AK-47, and they don't criminalize the AK-47 as much. And you can get your hands on a AK-47 just as easy as an AR-15.
By the media, would you include Hollywood?
I would include Hollywood. I would include CNN.
Everything.
Everything that sells, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they all play a part in this, you know. But I mean, that's just the world we live in, right? If they have something against you or a certain thing, they're gonna portray it as a bad thing.
I think going on to a little bit of different aspect is that, you know, and something that Jose just reminded me of is government. You know, I feel like our country was formed, you know, basically there was an oppressive government. And if it wasn't for them having weapons, we would still live under the oppression of the
The
Britain, you know?
yeah, Britain.
And you know, so I feel like in the Second Amendment says you have the right to bear arms
Shall not be
and to have
infringed.
a well-regulated militia. Am I right?
Yeah.
I think that's the wording. And a lot of people were like, oh well, they meant like muskets and you know like guns that you have to like reload super slowly, you know. But I want you to look at the disparity between guns and the guns that the government owns, and then so and look at it, the disparity then versus now. So before, there was cannons, there was muskets, and there was like and you know battleships. You know, like they would come in with like a bunch of cannons. You know.
Bro, I'd rather get shot by an AR-15 than a cannon, bro. I don't
Okay.
know.
Okay. No. But this is not the argument though. The argument is
know.
this: is look at the disparity. So that the colonial army had both muskets and they had cannons as well, and so if you know regular people could own that stuff, they were able to compete with the government, even though that the British Army was like way more like with a lot more money and better supplied,
Yeah.
you know. But in you know the disparity between weapons was not that great, you know, and so to say that the founding fathers only thought that you should own a musket and you know own like these weapons is not according because they were trying to like prevent another oppressive government from taking control. And so let's look at the disparity between weapons that civilians can own versus weapons that the government has. So, you know, if you live in California, you can have a 10-round magazine. You need on your gun, you can have an AR-15, which is probably like the highest like weapon you can have apart from an AK-47.
Yeah.
And no semi-auto. You can't have the side fire stock, right? Side fire.
Yeah, well, you get the option. You can either have like the side, the butt stock, right, and you have like a non-adjustable stock. So, and you have to do the also the fin,
The button, right?
the button and the fin, right. You have to do all these like
So you can have a pistol
Adjustments.
grip.
yeah, you can have a pistol grip. So you have to change all these things to even be allowed. And I know this for so because I own one. I had to do all these modifications based on what California says, right, just to be able to own one. And you know, it's a great looking gun, all that. Like I said, I know for a fact there's a gun out there that does more damage, but we've also regulated it to a certain way that it's probably less effective now. If you were in California, I'm saying, you know, just by the comfort of it, it's probably like a less effective weapon to use, probably than other states. But yeah,
Yeah, and so back to the disparity. Now, if you look at what type of weapons does the government have? I mean, look around. I mean, technology has grown so much. I mean, bro, nukes.
Bro, what's the
chemical
weapon?
weapons.
What's the weapon they lent to Israel?
They have
the Iron Dome.
the Iron Dome.
The Iron Dome, bro. Like nothing can touch you because you got the Iron Dome.
No, but I mean, just like in general,
wait.
weapons, bro.
And
Hand grenades. They have so many things, bro.
Didn't they just release like some briefing on like a DNA weapon or something like that?
Oh yeah, you're
like
right.
some crazy like James Bond next level.
And
like,
then
weapon,
you also showed me the shockwave one.
Oh yeah, now they have like energy weapons where basically they can
Stop bullets.
It was Boeing, right? I think it was Boeing. They're creating energy shields so they can stop,
So like if you were to look at like
fragments.
we were just talking about Marvel the other day, right?
Uh-huh.
If you look at like Wakanda, bro, like like the shield
that
outside.
shield.
I kid you not, their picture that depicts it has the same style shield that coming in like the same way.
I don't know if you guys have seen this one get briefed a while ago, but it was like a heart attack gun. Like I guess they like. It was
Oh
like,
yeah, they made one.
It was like
It
debriefed
wa-
by the CIA.
I don't
and
know if it's
like,
a conspiracy or what it was,
But it was like
I believe
a
it.
gun that gave people heart attacks, and that's how they. I don't know.
But bro, imagine. All right, so I'm not saying that a civilian should own these weapons by. No, they shouldn't. They really shouldn't. Don't get me wrong, they shouldn't. But should a government like even have these weapons in the first place? To be honest,
well, the argument is the next country has it.
the next country has it,
Yeah.
Obviously, so we can't stop that, right? We're not gonna be able to stop like a government from producing stuff like that.
Yeah, we
But
can't
why
regulate.
continue restricting our civilians when our government has like all these crazy weapons, bro? And the thing is that I feel like I'm more scared in the future when there's gonna be AI, because AI is gonna have very little morals compared to humans.
Yeah.
Because like right now, of course, the government can only do so much because they rely on humans, that have family here in the United States. So they can't 100% control you and force their soldiers to do something like super immoral, because they're gonna be like, I'm a human at the end of the day, But imagine if they switched to AI soldiers, bro. You think they would like? And I'm not even trying to be political, bro. It's just technology. You think AI is gonna be merciful?
Bro, you wake up one morning and they're like, "Yeah, Elon Musk robot just killed him." Like, yeah, I need my guns back. It's like, yeah, I'm not turning in my guns, bro. But yeah, like we're advancing so much in technology, like we're gonna get to that point, like, and they're still trying to push for us to not have them. I wanted to share like the last one, which I sent you guys a video earlier. Was Sean Moon, and this guy has like this big church in Pennsylvania, and like he like all of the members are armed citizens. They're all Christian faith based, and he truly believes that they should have armed because he says I want to say it's borderline cult. It is.
It is a
Yes, for
cult.
sure.
It is a cult. It is a cult. But he had some valid points, right? Because he says that a lot of arguments that come against him, like whether like Christians should own guns, was like, well, the Bible says, or Jesus said, if they slap you, turn the other cheek, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said that, he didn't believe in that, because he also brought up scripture and it said in like Luke 22, where Jesus is, preparing to be crucified. He tells his disciples, he's like, if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one.
Mm-hmm.
And he says like, the whole cheek thing was like more of like a vengeance thing. Like if somebody's already wronged you, like, just turn the cheek and like let it go.
Or about like disrespect,
And just disrespect in general. He's like, but my God is a God that has protected his people over time with the use of their weapons. So just looking at history, looking at what we've brought, like what has brought us here today, like I truly believe like, if you are a Christian, you should be allowed, or if you're convicted in such a way that you should be allowed to have a weapon, then, so be it.
I think God is a God of justice.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't think God will ever justify murder. But I truly believe that God, if he sees you like you're truly protecting your family, your friends with a weapon, he's going to take that into account, bro. And
sure.
it's not going to be like a guy that's going to be like, oh, well, you did it. He's going to look at context and everything and the way that your heart was like,
Posture.
he looks at your heart.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't think just because you're a Christian, you should like refrain yourself from protecting yourself.
In general, yeah. And I mean, like just like to the viewer, you guys are all like open to even comment on this. Like, what do you guys think on it? Like, put it below. Like, are you somebody that's pro Second Amendment? Pro having guns, or what are your reasons
Yeah,
for?
and if you have a reason why you don't believe in guns, like
Yeah, if
we
you have
would
a
love
reason,
to hear it.
yeah, post why you believe that we shouldn't have guns, you know? And yeah, I mean, just to wrap it up, I know we can go on and on about this topic because it's so broad, but I mean, we just wanted to like kind of get an input from everybody here and what you guys think on this because it's a topic that's going around right now.
And yeah, I think if we want to wrap it up, I think, I think what we covered was that we talked about, the banning guns might not be the solution, right? For your community, for your society, right? But what is gonna help your society? Like, go out there and spread love, guys. Like, go
Yeah,
out
for
there
sure.
and show up for your neighbor.
For sure.
Like, how are you? Like, how you doing today? Like,
Check on people.
yeah,
Yeah.
spread love, guys.
All right.
Checking those
And I
requirements.
feel like I know like this can be a controversial topic, but we're not here to indoctrinate you guys. We're just here to inform you guys, have a conversation. So I just want to leave it like that because we are a
Yeah.
nonprofit organization. So
All right, let's wrap it up, guys. Let's end with prayer. Father God, I thank you for the privilege to be here today and talk about this topic, Lord. You give us the ability to talk about these things, Lord, and bring light to them, Lord. And I pray for everybody's safety, Lord. That we live in these harsh times, Lord. We know your coming is near, Father God, and we want to prepare for that, Lord Jesus. And we just ask that you help us protect each other and love each other at the end of the day, Father God. So I pray for the viewers. I pray for everybody here, Father God. In your name I pray. Amen.
thank
All
you
right,
guys for watching.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.